I'm Shae Russell from mining.com.au, and joining me today is Peter Dodds, the Exploration Manager for Kingsrose Mining. Peter, it is great to have you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Shae. Thanks for having me on today.
Now, I'm thrilled to have an exploration manager on. I always love it when I finally get a chance to talk to the geo. But to kick off today's conversation, we're going to do it a little bit different. And this is talking about Kingsrose Mining's alliance with BHP. Now, I've got to be honest, most juniors don't have this. What is this?
Yeah, it's a really exciting partnership that we're part of with BHP. It's essentially several years of work now that stemmed from BHP's cutting edge Explore program. We were part of the very first cohort to go through that, which is essentially an accelerator program to link a major mining company with junior explorers with ideas across the world that maybe BHP aren't involved in, but would like to be. And we're essentially the first publicly listed company to come out at the end of that Explore program and move into a real partnership with BHP. And so in May last year, we signed an exploration alliance for continuing the work that we'd started with the Explore program to explore two highly prospective belts in Scandinavia. One in northern Norway called our Finnmark project, and one in Finland in the Kotilahti district called our Central Finland project. And it's essentially it's a multi-phased alliance, but we're in the project generative phase where we're essentially doing belt scale generative exploration to try and identify accumulations of copper, nickel, and PG massive sulfide deposits associated with mafic, ultramafic intrusions. And we're essentially exploring in northern Norway in an extension to the Lapland Greenstone Belt in Finland, which hosts basically Europe's largest gold mine, Europe's largest nickel mine, and also Anglo-Americans' world-class Sakatti discovery, which is a nickel copper PG deposit. And we in Finnmark we control the extension of that belt, basically 200 kilometres of Greenstone Belt is entirely controlled by this BHP and Kingsrose alliance. And then likewise in central Finland, we're exploring in the Kotilahti nickel copper district, which is a albeit historic mining district that's produced a lot of nickel, copper, and polymetallics throughout its history, but is highly prospective and is really ready for a new phase of cutting edge modern exploration. So that's what we're doing with BHP.
Now, I heard some proper nerdy geo words in there, and I'm absolutely going to come back to them in the second half of today's conversation. But I sort of wouldn't mind summarising the end of your summer program. You mentioned the projects out in Finland and Norway. What did this summer program reveal about these areas?
Yeah, so we really hit the ground running as soon as the alliance was signed in May, and our field teams mobilised. We had aeroplanes, helicopters, drones in the air, geos running around in the forest and the mountains. It's real proper old school exploration with a modern twist. So we essentially across both alliances we collected nearly 10,000 line kilometres of new geophysical data, and our teams collected over 1,300 geochemical samples, so rock chips and soil samples. So again, we're operating at belt scale work. We're doing large regional programs. In Finnmark, in Norway, we flew over 5,000 line kilometers of airborne gravity at high resolution to complement the existing magnetic data. And these two data sets together are really key for identifying concealed intrusive signatures with geophysics. And kind of based on the integration of that data, our field teams got out to start testing the ground, and to our delight started making discoveries of outcropping high grade mineralization. So the results we announced last month in the Porsanger area of our Finnmark project, we actually returned rock chip samples of 29.7% copper, 1.1 grams per ton of gold and half a gram per ton of palladium. And on the western side of the belt, similarly high grade samples of 4.5% copper, 1.8 grams per ton gold, and again about half a gram of palladium, which are really exciting numbers, really great things for the team to be discovering. But it's that metal basket, the fact that we've got the PGEs with the copper, it sort of highlights the sort of that these are most likely of magmatic source, that they're being sourced from a mafic ultramafic source, a mafic ultramafic intrusion, and we hope to use these as kind of vectors back to larger accumulations of massive sulfide mineralization within those host intrusions. It's very similar to, like I mentioned before, the world-class Sakatti deposit that Anglo discovered on the Finnish side of the belt, where a lot of their early drill holes were intersecting high-grade copper, palladium-rich mineralization, and as they drilled deeper, it became more nickel-rich. So we're really encouraged to see these kind of signatures at such an early stage of the Exploration Alliance. It's great proof of concept that our approach is working.
I wouldn't mind drilling into your approach just a little bit more before we wrap up today. You talk about belt scale exploration. Now, let's be honest, this is not something a lot of juniors get the opportunity to do. Kingsrose Mining is in rude good health. You've got in excess of $20 million on the books. So what does belt scale exploration mean?
Yeah, great question. It essentially, it can mean a few different things, but the way that we're applying it is in Norway and Finland is going into two, known belts, two identified greenstone belts, which are, in Finnmark, the belt's nearly 200 kilometers of strike extension, and in Finland it's nearly 400 line kilometers, so that you get a sense of scale that we're exploring at. These aren't just individual targets or individual deposits. It's looking at the entire sort of prospective geology and trying to highlight basically our exploration approach is to try and move down the scale and become more and more targeted, whilst keeping that kind of big picture understanding of what are the prospective parts of the belt. And the only really way to do that is with this systematic approach of kind of scale reduction and applying modern geophysics, modern geochemistry to understand what are the really, prospective signatures of the individual intrusions that help us when it gets to groundwork and drilling, really give us our best chance of making a significant discovery. And like you said, as geologists, we're really, as a geology team, we're super excited about that, because it isn't the work that outside of a major company, it's not typically the work that a junior tends to get to do. But it's really essential if we are going to start making significant new discoveries, and rather than just rehashing old ones. So yeah, we're extremely fortunate to be able to do this kind of work and get great support from the teams in BHP as well, to go out and do some really exciting proper exploration.
Listen, Peter, you've dropped some super cool geology terms, which I'm going to have to save for another interview today. So I really hope I get to have you come back on. Thank you so much for this update. It was great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Shae. It was a pleasure.